He arrived at our Valentine's date with another girl even though he said he'd forgive me. Whatever happened to forgive and forget and all that stuff? You know the whole if you love someone you would forgive them when they do things that hurt you. I understand that whatever he did was out of anger, but he said he had forgiven me and had also forgotten about everything that had happened. Whatever happened to forgiving all wrongs and moving past everything? Oh, I'm sorry. Here I am rambling about the consequences of my actions when you probably don't even have the slightest clue as to what I'm talking about. Sure, I messed up, but then who doesn't? Plus, he told me that night that he had forgotten and forgiven me. He hugged me and even gave me the best night of my life, so what happened? Here I go again rambling. Now, in case I happen to do it again, which I know I definitely will, let me fill you in on everything that happened so that you would know why I can't seem to understand what is going on. My name is Jane Stevens, and I'm a 38-year-old female and mother who single-handedly dug her own grave but still can't understand why my baby daddy gets to hold the shovel. Now, before I start rambling again, let me tell you guys a bit about myself, my baby daddy, and how I designed and perfected my own downfall. I mean, I didn't think it would get this bad. It was supposed to be over. He said he realized that everyone deserved a second chance. I was born to Mr. and Mrs. Witt. I am their only biological child, although I have 3 older brothers. They were adopted, and it's important that you remember this. We lived in, and to be honest, growing up wasn't so grand, but I never had any reason to complain or anything, but I was always a bit greedy. Too greedy for my age. I always wanted more than my brothers, and being the only girl and biological one at that had its perks. My parents love all their children equally, but my mom worshipped the very ground I walked on, and the other members of the family had no problem with that. I went to the best schools, got the best clothes and toys most kids my age would only dream of. You would think I would be the most happy and grateful child ever, but I was not. I complained at the slightest of things. I always wanted whatever I saw on the TV or saw other kids my age had. My brothers tried to teach me that being content was very important, but I didn't listen to any of them. In addition to my behavior, I hardly did well in school. Now I was not a dumb kid or anything. I just didn't like working for anything, even my grades. I can't count the number of times my parents had been called to my school to discuss my grades with my teachers. They would go, have the talk, come back home and have a chat with me. And although I didn't want to work at all, I was also tired of my parents' constant nagging, so I decided to change my grades from an F to a P. This small but noticeable change was enough to get my parents off my back till I graduated high school. I didn't want to go to college, but after days of nagging, and nagging from my parents, I decided to attend community college. You might think that I decided to have a change of heart after a certain point in my life. Well, I did. A bit. I had to if I wanted to graduate from community college. After that, I got a job as a receptionist at a hotel. I mean, it wasn't the best job in the world, but it was better than being at home while my parents nagged my ears out. It was at my job that I met Brian. He had come to the hotel for a business meeting and had approached me to ask for directions to the conference room. Now, before you start to assume that we had the whole love at first sight thing, we did not. We really did not. You see, I was on my break when he walked up to me and started talking. I didn't hear him initially because I had my earphones on, but I knew he was saying something. I wasn't going to let this stuck up, too rich to be touched, suit-wearing piece of Adams mess up my mood. To be quite fair, I hadn't spoken to him yet, so I didn't really know how he was, but after an encounter I had with a man who lodged in the hotel the previous night, I quickly decided that any man who wore a suit would behave the same way. But I was wrong. I was very wrong. Brian continued to talk, but when he saw that I wasn't even looking at him, he tapped on the bell which was stationed on the counter. He tapped it the first time. I ignored it. He tapped it the second time, but I also ignored it. He then started tapping it continually like a child, and that was when I lost it. "What the heck is wrong with you? Can't you see that I am on my break?" I literally yelled at him. Thankfully, my boss had gone to run some errand because if he had heard me, I was certainly going to lose my job. Brian was stunned by my outburst and stood speechless for some seconds. Then he cleared his throat, adjusted his tie before speaking again in a calmer voice. "Listen, I don't care about you or your break. I have an important meeting I need to attend and present a proposal that could change things for me, and I can't afford to be late. Now, if you don't mind, kindly point me towards the direction of the hotel's conference room, and then you can get back to lazing about. It's not like you can understand things like struggling or working hard to get something." He ended while looking at his watch. To be honest, his words pierced me so much that without thinking, I took my half-drunk hot Starbucks and poured it all over him before getting up and leaving. I guess he reported it because I was fired the next day. I tried to explain to my family that it wasn't my fault, but my brothers wouldn't let me speak. They scolded me so much that I said something I'll always regret no matter how long it takes. I told them that I didn't know why they were so upset. It's not like I got kicked out from my family or abandoned the way their birth parents did to them. I knew I had crossed a line. The entire room fell quiet, and my brothers stared at me for some time before leaving the house. My mom actually slapped me. I actually deserved it, after they left and tried to run after them. Dad didn't say or do anything to me. He just stared at me for a while, then went after Mom. My brothers didn't return home for a whole week, and my parents were so devastated by this that they didn't leave the house. Now, it's very important that I say this. My brothers always knew that they were adopted, and it was very obvious, but given the fact that they had gotten that job for me, and the only way I could show my appreciation was to loose it within a week, and also make reference to them being abandoned was low, even for me. I felt really bad after the fourth day, and I tried calling them, but they wouldn't talk to me. When they finally came back, it was as though we had won the lottery. I apologized, and they forgave me. Plus, they found me another job. Want to know something funny? I blamed everything on Brian. Of course, then I didn't know his name, so I nicknamed him Asterisk Stuck-Up Suit Guy Asterisk. I blamed him for what happened because if he just allowed me take my break in peace or not say all those words he said, I would not have gotten fired or had any reason to lash out at my brothers. If I had my way, I would have done everything remotely possible to avoid Brian till my last breath. But the universe has a mind of its own and had other things planned for me. On a Monday morning, I was scheduled for an interview to work as a secretary at one of the biggest companies in my town. I was really excited because the pay was good, and I would have enough to move out of my parents' house by the end of the year, if I got it. When I arrived there, I was asked to wait at the lobby until my boss arrived. I waited for 20 minutes before being asked to go into a room for my interview. When I entered, I was asked to close the door behind me, and I instantly recognized the voice. I cursed under my breath before turning around to see Brian, but he was going through some files in front of him, so he hadn't seen me yet. As I moved to the seat opposite him, I thought of making a run for it before he saw my face and fake being ill. I thought of so many things I could do to avoid being here, but it was too late. He cleared his throat and looked at me with a smirk on his face. "Who do we have here?" he said while rocking his chair from one side to another. I wanted to wipe that smirk off his face so bad, but I also needed that job, so I kept a straight face and introduced myself. I actually thought he would ask me to leave his office, but he didn't. He was nice and professional all through the interview. To cut the long story short, I didn't get the job. I got a different one, but he said it was because I wasn't qualified for the one I applied for. He had hired me to be his PA. I figured that if I accepted the offer, he would make my life a living hell, and I was about to decline. But when I heard the salary, I stopped in my tracks and actually pinched myself to be sure I wasn't dreaming. Although I didn't like him, I needed the job if I was going to leave my parents' house, so I agreed. I was asked to start work the following week because Brian, stuck-up suit guy, was traveling for a family gathering and wouldn't be back till Sunday. I still can't understand why someone would say one thing and do another. I mean, it's not like I carried another man's baby or anything, so why would he do what he did? I'm sorry that I keep doing this. It's just, I never thought something like this would ever happen to me, but here I am. I would have said something, but I'm not completely innocent, so I'll probably just keep quiet and let you guys be the judge of everything. Now, people of this fine earth, I would not lie to you. Working with Brian was not what I expected. I thought he would be a horrible person. I mean, considering what happened at the hotel, I kind of expected him to milk the situation. But he wasn't. I worked with him for 3 years and I never complained about anything. Neither did I ever get my salary a day late. He was so understanding and caring that I started developing feelings for him. I've never felt this way about a person before, but I couldn't tell him. What if he laughs at me, or worse? What if he fires me? I decided to keep my mouth shut, but then the unexpected happened. I never thought I would ever be caught dead in something like this. I mean, I should have seen it coming, but still, I thought mine would end differently. Guess I was wrong. Now remember, I said that I had this massive crush on Brian but wouldn't tell him. Yeah, I shouldn't have even had in the first place because having it was the blueprint of my end. And want to know what's funny? I literally drew it myself. Now I had worked for Brian for 2 years and the crush only seemed to increase up to the point I would drift off during the day, dreaming about being in his arms and creating memories with him. I had never seen Brian with a girl. He was always with girls. Not girls, and that sort of made me jealous. Jealous that those guys get to spend the night with him while I sleep alone on my cold bed in my lonely apartment. Yes, I finally moved out. I know it sounds weird, but I didn't want to share my man with anyone. Yes, I said it, my man. I was gradually getting obsessed with him, but I didn't mind, and all I wanted was for him to be mine. One day, Brian stayed late at the office, and when I wanted to go and wish him goodnight, I noticed something. He was sobbing and drunk. He was so drunk that he was slurring his words. I couldn't let him drive home in such a state, and to be honest, I wasn't comfortable leaving him alone with an Uber driver, so I decided that I would take him back to my place. It was the closet place from the office, so that the day, he would go back to the office and get his car. While I was helping him to the car, he kept muttering some words. He kept saying things like, "Why won't she understand that I love her? I see her every day, but she barely recognized me." I didn't know what he was talking about, so I just told him that everything would be fine, and then helped him into the car. When we got to my place, I helped him into the bed, and just as I was about to leave, he held my hand and pulled me close to his face. He looked at me for some seconds before burping in my fave and then slumping on the bed. "What? You thought he was going to kiss me and we would loose out minds?" Well, I'll loose my own mind if that happened, but sadly, it did not happen. I was disappointed, but I didn't want to take advantage of him in such a state. I mean, I wanted him so badly, but I wanted him to want me as well. I slept on the sofa that night and dreamt about both of us getting busy in a private beach. Too much? Sorry, I always go way above my own imagination. The next, as you can imagine, Brian woke with a hangover and the look terror when he realized that he was in an unknown place, but he calmed down when he saw me. His first action was to look under the sheets to check for his clothes, and funny enough, they were still there. He asked me what happened and if he had done something to me or with me, to which I said no. He thanked me and left. People of this earth, if this was how our story ended, I would have been okay, I guess, but me being me. I secretly wanted more, and when the universe handed me what I want, I took it without being cautious or careful. It was at that point that I had brought the shovels that was used to dig my grave. The following week, Brian's behavior towards me suddenly changed. I mean, he was nice to me before, but it was though he was seeing me in a different light, and to be honest, I loved it. It didn't take long before he asked me out on a date. I happily accepted, and we had the best night of our lives. Well, I know I did, though. Everything was just going the way I wanted it, and I didn't need to think twice when he asked me to be the mother of his unborn kids. I was so happy that I was finally going to be the one he would always come home to, and I was going to have him all to myself. I couldn't wait for the wedding, and most especially the honeymoon phase. He gave me a wedding that would forever stay glued to my mind, and as for the wedding night, let's just say I couldn't get out of bed till noon, and he didn't mind. He made me breakfast in bed, got me my favorite snacks, and honestly spoilt me silly during our honeymoon. He really was the best husband any girl could ask for. Now remember I said it was at this point that I had bought the shovel that I used to dig my own grave? Yeah, it was... You see, after we got back from our honeymoon, things changed. Brian didn't, though. He was still sweet and all, but I just got bored. Yes, you heard me right, I got bored. You remember how I was as a child, right? Always wanting things more than I actually needed? Yeah, that's what I was doing. Now that I had Brian and had finally lived my fantasy with him, I was bored. He suddenly felt plain and just normal. I'm not saying that normal is bad or anything, but I wanted flavor. I wanted something to get me all hyped and all, but Brian was not doing anything like that. To make matters worse, he started going on business trips and staying late at the office. Oh, to be clear, I wasn't his PA anymore. I stopped working for him the day he proposed to me. It was my decision, though. I thought since I was engaged to him, I didn't need to work for him anymore. Yeah, I know. That was a dumb decision, but remember, this is the girl who didn't like working in the first place. All those behaviors and habits I had as a child was slowly coming back, and I was gladly embracing it. One day, Brian told me that he was going on a work trip and he was going to stay 3 weeks on the trip. I decided that I was going to use this opportunity to explore and have some fun. Fun. It sounds so innocent, but trust me, it's nothing like that, at least not the type I had in mind. I had no female friends to call up and hang out with, so I decided to move on to my next plan. Tinder. The day Brian left, he had gone to the airport quite early in the morning, so I wasn't able to see him off. I woke up to his usual breakfast in bed with a rose and a note by the side. You looked so peaceful sleeping that I felt that waking you up would be a sin. I'll see you in 3 weeks, babe. Love you. Ugh, I swore I almost lost my appetite. I'm sorry, but all that lovey-dovey stuff was starting to get to me. I picked up my phone and downloaded Tinder. I spent the next few hours, scrolling left on Tinder. The profiles I kept seeing were just James, 39, had a bio that read, "If you can't handle me at my worst jet lag, you don't deserve me at my best sunset selfie." Swipe right if you're ready for an adventure of a lifetime. Or was it Steve, 42? "I admire a woman who gets up before I do and gets the kids ready for school." Like, what the heck is all this? What happened to all the hot men that were looking for adventures and hookups? Obviously. Just when I was about to give up, I stumbled upon the worst, best mistake of my life. Andrew, 30, light-skinned and muscular. He had no bio. Mysterious. I like that. I swiped right, and to my greatest delight, we matched. I sent him a simple hi, and then dropped my phone to go take a shower. When I came back, I saw that I had a notification from Tinder. It was Andrew. He had replied, and after about 45 minutes of flirting, we decided to meet the next day at the house. I thought that it would be safer if we stayed at my place. Just as I was about to drop my phone, I got another notification, and another, and another. My phone was blowing up, and they were all from Tinder. Before I went to bed that night, I had already fixed 3 appointments in the next 3 days and 4 the following week. I was so excited. I was going to experience bliss, something that Brian wasn't giving me any longer. Now, ladies, I will not lie. It was amazing. Honestly, some guys just know how to leave you breathless, but nothing will ever replace the feeling you get when you're with the one you love. Sorry if I'm getting all mushy. Now I had the best 3 weeks of my life, and to be honest, I didn't want it to end. I wanted Brian to call me and tell me that he had to extend his trip, but that never happened. He came home on a Saturday, and I noticed that something was off about him. I couldn't place what it was, but he just seemed out of it. I figured that he was just tired, and I was probably right, because after he ate and slept, he was back to his normal self. I kept on replaying the amazing time I had with my Tinder flings, and boy, oh boy, did I daydream about them a lot. I didn't know that the hole I was digging was almost done. My world was about to come crashing down on me. That day, I was in the restroom when Brian called out to me that he needed my phone to collect the number of the insurance company, and I told him where it was. Now, stupid me forgot to turn off my notifications, hide Tinder, and clear my chat, so as you can imagine, I got a message from one of my Tinder studs, and Brian saw them. He saw all of them. He read everything, and I mean everything, down to how I had told one of them how I wanted to be handled behind closed doors. I was still in the restroom while all this was happening, so the moment I stepped out, I saw Brian sitting down, holding my phone and looking down at it. "Did you find the number?" I asked, still clueless about what was about to unfold. "Who's Andrew?" he asked slowly. My blood froze. I knew that the secret was out. I didn't know what to say, so I just kept quiet and stood there. "Who the heck is Andrew?" he shouted, and I flinched. When I didn't answer, he threw the phone on the bed and lunged towards me, grabbing me by the throat and pinning me to the wall. I didn't even bother pleading to be let go. I accepted my fate, but it was as though he realized what he was doing and let go of me immediately and dashed out of the room. I hadn't seen that side of Brian before, and to be honest, I was scared of him. This all happened a few weeks ago, and Brian still hasn't come home. I tried calling, but he wouldn't pick up. I've left messages and tried to reach his family, but no one has heard from him. I'm still in the house. I deleted Tinder. I just want Brian back. Please. Brian, if you're reading this, please come home. I need you. We need you. Please. I just found out that I'm a few months gone, and I can swear on anything that it's yours, Brian. Please come home. Guys, if there's an update, I'll let you know. Hey guys, it's February 20th, and I am here with an update. It's not a very long one because honestly, everything happened so fast I still can't believe it happened. Brian eventually came back on the 10th of February. He said he needed time to think, and that he came to the conclusion that everyone deserves a second chance, as long as I promised not to repeat what happened. I did, and that night was magical. I had never seen that side of him, and honestly, I fell in love with him all over again after that night. The next day, everything went back to normal, and it was like there was never a time when he left. On the 13th of February, he said we should go on a Valentine's Day date to celebrate our rekindled love and also our baby. I agreed. On that day, I dressed like I had never dressed before. I actually went shopping earlier that day and also did my hair. I needed everything to be perfect. When I got to the venue, I didn't see Brian, so I called him. He said he was stuck in traffic, but that he would arrive shortly. I went ahead and ordered something to drink. I ordered a Long Island iced tea. 30 minutes later, Brian walked in looking so handsome in a suit, but he wasn't alone. He walked in with a lady who looked stunning, if I'm being honest. When he saw me, he walked over to the table, pulled out a chair for the lady, and when I leaned in to kiss him, he gave me a hug. And not just any hug, a side hug. I was confused, but I didn't want to ruin our special night, so I let it slide. I gently asked Brian what was going on, and what he said next still rings in my head. This is Tanya. She was the girl I was talking about the day I got drunk and you took me to your place. You see, Tanya and I were meant to be together, but life happened and we couldn't. Then I bumped into her on my last work trip, and one thing led to another, and we ended up spending the night together, though nothing happened. Apparently, I passed out before I could get my shirt undone. Tanya giggled as she said this while I sat transfixed to my chair. I felt so bad that I didn't know how to tell you about it when I came back, but decided I would. But what do you know? The day I decided to tell you was the day I discovered your skeleton. You brought out something that I had locked away for years, and I knew that staying with you would only make it worse, so I left and went to stay with Tanya. She would be moving in tomorrow. He finished before holding Tanya's hand and kissing it. What do you mean? I asked slowly. It means I am filing for a divorce and I don't want you anywhere near my house anymore. After he said this, he got up to leave. I held his hand, tears rolling down my cheeks. What about our baby? I asked him between tears. I don't have anything with you. Not a marriage and certainly not a baby, he said before leaving me there. So guys, currently at my parents' place. My parents won't talk to me, but my brothers have been supportive, although they were furious at first. I just signed the divorce papers. I don't know what to say anymore. It's goodbye, I guess.